Welcome back to the channel and welcome to episode 16 of my Lotus Esprit diary. This should be the last update on the actual car, getting it ready to go back to the project shop to be reunited with the engine. I've got one more video I think coming up before Christmas on the engine itself, just an update on what's going on with that. But in this one I'm just finishing off stuff in the engine bay, getting things tidied away, sorted out, and hopefully, fingers crossed, next week the car will be picked up again and off on its way to the project shop. So with the engine taken out, you can see what kind of size of hole we're talking about. This is and obviously the gearbox is gone too. But it's quite a big space that. You don't really appreciate it when the covers are on and when the engine itself is in. Thankfully they've labelled up all of these cables and hoses and whatnot. That's an engine mount that's going to need replacing. And that's different on that side, isn't it? Now they were suggesting to get a whole load of gunk in here to degrease it, but I don't think that's too bad actually around there. It'd be nice to try and get the sort of framework painted. And be also good to get sort of engine bay lining replacing that sort of silvered foil. Get that done around there. So I've got all the engine bay covers out. Some of them came out quite easily, like that one was already out. Obviously this cover is only clip-on. These two go on the edges and sort of screw to the top. But this one was a bit of a pig. It's actually got holes down the side, but getting the bolts undone took some doing, and a couple of them wouldn't undo at all. But my plan with this lot is to clean them up, maybe give them a bit of a paint, and these two here, these sort of the rear shelves, they need some carpet on those, and also I'm going to put some new sort of foil lining inside the engine bay, if not Dynamat then something similar. Likewise underneath here, that all needs replacing. So my plan for the rest of the engine bay, to see what I can do to clean all that up. It's quite gunky, kind of around some of the edges and underneath there. If I can, to paint the chassis tubes, that would be quite good. Well, these galvanised, the series 2.2 onwards I think were galvanised from factory, and this being a series 3. So I've got these rear 3/4 trim panels, so they go inside either of the two sort of window panels either side of the engine, and even though they're in the engine bay, they come with this sort of piece of carpet on the top. Now, it's an odd sort of bit of carpet. It's really thin, and there's sort of no backing to it, so I've not been able to find any like it. I have cleaned this, believe it or not. I sort of used a carpet cleaner on it, but clearly it's not going to do the job. So instead of trying to find a replacement piece of carpet, what I did was found this Auto Glim black dye. Now apparently this includes carpets, so I'm going to give this a go, spray it on there and see what that looks like. I can compare it to the one from the other side to see if it makes a big difference. So I put a piece of carpet in my kind of makeshift spray booth that I've already used on the seat rails, and just see what happens. So there's the finished one. It hasn't dried yet, but just comparing it to its opposite number on the other side, that's made a massive difference. It's almost like new, isn't it? Really pleased with that. So there you go, top tip, don't buy a new carpet, buy a £10 tin of Auto Glim black dye. So you can see I've been doing a bit of tidying up in the engine bay. Sprayed all the chassis with a galvanising paint. I've replaced the engine mounts, both sides, new ones. This is the sort of a heat shield goes back over the top of it. I've sort of painted these sides as well just to make them a little bit neater, rub them down a little bit. Painted that bit as well. I dyed the carpet section at the back with the same stuff as I used for the pieces that go along here on these side trims. So what else have I done in here? So all the hoses are out, and I've labelled up all the hoses. They're outside the car. Put new bushes in the gear linkage, and I've put new throttle cable and choke cable in. And one of the things I still need to do is replace these two pipes up here and the two pipes down there. So they all go through the chassis, two for the radiator, two for the heater. So they'll be replaced. And I've also replaced all this ducting on the side, either side, which sort of helps ventilate the engine bay and luggage space. So all is pretty good in here. There's only a couple of bits left to do. I've got a bit of soldering to do on one of the electrical connections to the thermal switch, the sort of Otter switch, as I think as it's sometimes known, that determines whether or not the water's getting too hot and the radiator fan needs to turn on. So anyway, done a fair bit of work in here. I've got new well nuts for these to be able to screw the engine bay sides down. So what I'm using is these, they're called well nuts, sort of rubber well nuts. They're for, they say they're for motorbike fairing attachment, but I just put a big washer behind them so that, you know, some of these holes are a bit oversized from where they've been sort of pulled in and out. So that will just go in there, and then when the other piece comes on top, just be a simple M6 screw that will screw down and hold it into place. So I've got a whole bunch of those. Don't want to put them in just yet in case they all rattle loose when the car goes back to the project shop in a week or two's time. But anyway, so that's the engine bay. I'll also show you the sides of the engine bay, the sort of engine bay surround. So I've cleaned those up, painted those, and I'm just in the process of putting some new foil linings on them. So looking at them closer, and in the interests of both time and cost and of getting the parts, I've decided not to do the through chassis pipes this time round. I still something I could do from the front if and when the radiator needs changing, but for right now I'm going to leave that one. So this is the engine cover from the engine bay. It's been cleaned up and rubbed down and given a coat of paint. And now I need to look at the underside to fix some new foil, heat shield foil. So on the underside was foil that was probably fitted in the factory. Now there's a bit of a problem trying to fit this, the new foil. This is called Reflector-Cool, which is self-adhesive. There was obviously some residue from the previous adhesive still left behind, and it just wouldn't stick. So I sort of stuck it down and it was fine, and then sort of it just lifted. So I've taken it off again. I've cleaned all this down again now. I don't know if it's still got residue. To be fair, it's really hard to find. I might have to get on there. I've had some degreaser on it. I might have to get on there with some, I don't know, some fairy liquid or something like that to really clean it up. And then I've got some heat resistant or high heat resistant epoxy glue to be able to stick that down. Now this stuff isn't particularly cheap. It's a lot cheaper than Dynamat, which would have been the sort of Rolls-Royce solution. But if I can reuse this bit, that would be great, because you know this bit alone is, you know, tens of pounds in cost. What you're looking at here is the floor of the engine bay, or floor of the luggage compartment, actually, that bit. And it's just this piece, so it's flipped over. It's just this surface here that faces into the engine bay. So it's just this part that had the foil on from manufacture. Now I'm hoping that that's a fairly sort of even piece that I can just stick on with relative ease and cut out. It's got sort of self-adhesive backing, so let's hope this one will stick well. So here it is finished or fully applied. So it's stuck down pretty well across these sort of broad surfaces. It's a little bit loose still around the edges. I'm going to try and figure out some way of doing that, because it will need to be sort of stuck down there. Otherwise, this is kind of the arch for the brake discs, I think. So they would be full of muck there. So I just need to figure out a way of sticking that down. I've got some epoxy glue. I'm going to probably use that to just stick down those edges. So more parts arriving, and these are the ones I've been waiting for so long. These are the pistons. So these are acrylite pistons. They're made by a company called Omega Pistons, and I bought them from QED Motorsport. So it comes with the piston rings there, and then 4 pistons. If I get one out, nice and shiny. Just get it out of its packaging. Look at that, forged pistons and really smooth surfaces. Gosh, that's beautiful, isn't it? Just a shame that actually nobody will see it. Well, hopefully nobody will see it for a long time. It will do really well. So we've got the 4 pistons and 4 piston liners. This is just sort of big metal tubes that go sit into the cylinder block. So also relevant to those is these big end bolts. Conrod bolts, also known as. These have come from SJ Sports Cars. These are ARP ones, which are supposed to be the best ones, and at the price that I paid for them, they ought to be bloody good. And it gives you the torque settings. So those, the pistons, the piston rings and the liners will be getting to the project shop later this week, so they can start putting the engine back together. And I also bought some new engine mounts, which I've already fitted actually into the car. And along with the engine mounts, I've got the buffer washers, sort of the ones that go underneath and the ones that go then on top of the engine mounts, and obviously the engine then mounting sort of leg sits on top of that. It's also from QED. I've got these clutch parts, so clutch plate, cover and release bearing. So another sort of random part, this is a piece of hose that goes between the inlet manifold and the water pump. So I've got the latest parts delivery, this one from SJ Sports Cars, and it is an air filter cartridge and oil cooler. So we've got the oil cooler pipes, and I'm guessing that inside this jiffy bag, oil cooler itself, which kind of just basically dangles underneath the car at the back. So you might recall from an earlier video that the exhaust downpipe, quite a lot of rust holes in it. The other parts were all right. There was actually a middle box in the original one, but the back box had got a single tailpipe. The originals had 2. So I've ordered this part. This is from P&M Parts, and it's apparently it's made using the same jigs that Lotus had, but instead of the middle box they put a sort of straight or a link connector pipe. But there it is. Thought it was worth showing you, because once it's on the car there'd be very little of it to be seen. If you want to follow my journey with the Esprit, hopefully as I get the car back together and it gets back on the road in the new year, then please hit the subscribe button. Also hit like, and by all means comment, ask me a question, tell me things I'm doing wrong, give me some suggestions, ask me questions about what I've done. As I said at the beginning, probably one more video before the end of the year, and then I'll see you in the new year. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.